It would be my pleasure to do that to you. I do recommend you send it out almost immediately, though, to the vendors prior to getting their proposals in.
I just had a quick question. Is our working assumption right that this is something that would require hardware or some kind of automated parking system? Or is what we're doing with manual labor on a seasonal basis the right approach?
I can't really answer that for you because you have an idea. You want to do this on season, you want it off season, you want it with employees present, you want it at times without employees present. If it's without employees present, you certainly have to do it automated. At the worst, an automated system, even its simplest, may help you cut down on any loss of revenues that you may have experienced over the years because now you've got more controls on the revenue. You've got more auditing capability. All of this software, all of this hardware equipment, they have full auditing capability. It knows how much money was taken in. It knows how much money has been collected when the cash boxes or the vaults are taken out. You know how many tickets and what kind of tickets are being sold. That's the kind of software you're looking for in order to recover any of the losses you might have. So, again, even the basic equipment with the basic software should be able to do that. It's when you start getting into resident, non-resident, senior, child 12 and under, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, special events, when you start getting into all of those different types of ticket types and ticket
That's the best thing you said tonight, Jim.
That's where you really start getting
You saved
complex.
me about 45 minutes in tonight's meeting.
That's where it gets complex.
Well, listen, thanks so much for coming tonight.
My pleasure.
If you could send that to Bishop, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
If the committee and subcommittee decides that we need professional consultation and we decide we don't have to, well, I guess we do have to vote.
It's expenditure.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about the competitive bidding because it's professional services, but you still need to vote by the board.
Right.
Before I leave, I'll leave Bishop some of my business cards.
Yeah, that'd be terrific, Jim. Thanks so much for coming.
If you would like me to come back again at another time to speak with you, it would be my pleasure.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
We'll take 10 free hours, though. Can we take 10 free hours? 10 free hours would be really nice. Just 10.
I was thinking of 100.
Let him move to Rise, so he's around.
Yeah.
Put him on a volunteer board or something.
Exactly right.
It's just a couple of copies. Yes.
Okay,
Beautiful.
that was good.
Bishop, would you, I'm trying to turn this, you have some staff recommendation? Who's going to make the staff recommendation? Fred? Thank you very much. Happy New Year, by the way.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Okay. Who's going to make staff recommendations, Bishop? Is that you?
All right. This is kind of a read-along kind of document because in order to understand some of the stuff we're talking about, you have to be looking at the current financials, I think. So you have the numbers. They're unaudited. They're still subject to some tweaking and so forth. But fundamentally, that's pretty close to the results that we expect. In broad strokes, we came up $78,000 short on the revenue side. We spent $64,000 more on the expense side. The net of that is in essence about $142,000 loss against the budget. All right. If you look in the variance columns there, you're going to see the big drivers for that. We certainly had labor was up over 52,000. Unemployment
What was driving that?
Well, my feeling there is that we had many more operating days than we had planned. Frankly, we thought we'd be closed a few days. If I recall, I think we only had 2 or 3 rain dates the entire season. So labor goes up as a result. However, we didn't see the corresponding attendance. So if you look at your attendance numbers were down. That kind of works against you in that regard. This year we had a fairly huge jump in unemployment expenses. These claims, if you saw, I gave you a sheet. They were filed more or less late in the season, and we didn't get determinations on most of them until December. So it kind of surprised us a little bit. Interest cost was a substantial jump as well. If you're familiar, Town of Rye does fronts all the money to the Rye Town Park Commission.
How much is the interest rate that's charged? Because quite honestly,
Yeah.
the one who's absorbing it is really the city of Rye. Because if you have the Town of Rye to the Rye Town Parks Commission, really, when you're thinking about it, it's with the exception of the city of Rye, who absorbs a certain percentage of the deficit that results. So it's really the fact that the Town of Rye is, how do I say it, is incurring this to the detriment of the city. That's really what's being done. Because if you have the Town of Rye and the Park Commission, and you didn't have the city involved here, it would be one and the same. It would just be a wash to the Town of Rye residents. So I guess my question is, what's the interest rate that's being charged back by the town to?
I would assume it's a normal investment interest rate, whatever
Not with those figures.
whatever the bonding rate is, 4%, 3%. Well,
I really like because it's a very high amount.
Yes.
The reason I say that, when I look at the interest that was charged on a budget of this size, I know what the Village of Rybrook has, okay? And its budget is multiples, and the interest is much less.
there was one.
Well, we can stipulate, Mayor Feinstein, it's real simple. If the city of Rye wants to put up the money, the city of Rye can put up the money. We're not looking to make
No,
a profit.
no,
We're not saying, or even if the Village of Rybrook wants to
I
put up.
just want to make sure, I would like to know what the rate is.
There's
No, of course.
one key factor here that maybe is unusual for this year, and that is that we had the $1.4 million roof project, and we spent that money before all of the bonding was completed, et cetera. So you're really looking at the town was fronting the Rye Town Park Commission
I just want to know
close
what
to
it
$2
is.
million during the season
Yeah.
until we got reimbursed, meaning the grant money was reimbursed on an after
I think
expenditure.
there's two things. First of all, we need to get the figure, the actual
Yeah,
figure.
absolutely.
Yeah, but just to,
Secondly, if there's any desire on the city of Rye or any of the villages to change us funding it, as you know, we're a $3.5 million budget. We collect $160 million in tax revenues, and so obviously anything that comes out of our coffers is much smaller than any of the other municipal entities. But so we're more than happy to have a different mechanism for doing it as well.
I'll have Mr. Terenzi put together a memorandum to be distributed to the
But
commission.
furthermore, that number, if it was driven by the roof project, that number would have been known early in the year. And for us to be finding about it now seems to be a little bit late to be finding
Well, I
out
think
about
that,
it.
look, we, Mayor French and I were meeting with some, had a meeting earlier this afternoon. I think that's absolutely correct, Commissioner Sack, and we've got to go to a monthly budgeting and a monthly update, and I think it's disappointing. Every year I've been here, we think, we start off the season in the hope we're going to break even. By August, September, we think we're making money. And then, we end up at the end of the year. A lot of it's got this unemployment insurance. We get whacked with $52,000 unemployment insurance. I mean, I think it's unconscionable. We got to look into the way it's charged. But, how do you get unemployment insurance for seasonal employees of $52,000? I know we worked hard to reduce it. But I do think we need, I really think, I'm quite disappointed this year because we had a lot of, we had great weather, and I really think we need to I'm very anxious to get the RFPs because we really need to take a hard look at how we fundamentally reduce expenditure at the park. And I think we need to be very creative in the way we think about that. And so I think that's right, Commissioner Sack, and we need to monitor it much better than we have. So it's a very fair criticism, and it seems like every year we're hit with a December surprise, which is very disappointing.
just as an aside, and you're correct, Supervisor, the fact that it would be good to have the controls and have an automated system. But besides that, we have to really discuss whether or not the model of the way the park runs in general is the best model. We've talked about that shared services and
Yeah,
going forward.
absolutely.
That is something that we can't put off next year, not for this season.
No, I'm not.
But to study
Yeah.
our goal, if we talk about goals for 2011, to really look at that.
Well,
Yeah, we've talked
you're
about
absolutely right,
that.
Mayor Feinstein. I think
And one
the
thing, and I will
RFP.
say, it's not a criticism, it's just in hard economic times, and really what makes me think about this, when you have an expenditure of $50,000 for unemployment, you say, what is this?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. No, look, I think that we had good weather, and we still generated a loss. We're not generating revenue to pay, the capital expenditure, the maintenance on the building.
Right.
We've got to do something about that building. So I am disappointed with the results this year, quite frankly. And especially with the slippage at the year end, we've got to find a way to better manage September, October, November, December. We've got to find a way of reducing costs. And I think the RFP, and think outside the box about sharing services and other ways to do it, as you suggest. And I think we've got to, and I think the RFP process will trigger a lot of that discussion, because I'm hopeful they'll come back with some comprehensive solutions, and we'll really be able to get down on it. So, we've mostly been focused on the revenue side so far. And I think at $1.1 million in expenditure, there's a fair amount of scope to reduce expenditures as well.
Well, Supervisor, if I may, it's not just slippage at the end of the year, because it's finding out about it at the end of the year.
Right.
Because it's not just the interest issue, but I'm looking at $40,000 extra in salaries paid to groundsmen and security over the course of the year. That didn't just happen in October. And all along we had been told that if we lost any money, it was going to be somewhere in the $50,000 range. Now we find out it's $142,000. That's 14% of the entire budget. If Mayor French and I were off by 14% with our Rise City budget, we'd be off by $4.5 million. So, percentage-wise, I think it's incredibly large.
It's not exactly a fair comparison, but I do agree with the sentiment, and I think the sentiment's absolutely correct. In fact, actually, we have a budget committee, and I'm very happy to I'm happy to set up a committee to really evaluate expenditures, and either part of the budget committee or as a separate committee to really look at how we can really take a big bite out of these expenditures, because I do share your disappointment and concern, so I don't know what the commission thinks. We can either make it part of the budget committee or really have a separate committee, really just to take a real hard-nosed look at expenditures. Mayor French?
Yeah, I think we just have to change the way we operate. We've been setting great policy this year to have a better user experience. The staff, most of which are part-time, the managers, have done a great job. But it's the unknowns. And so are we managing a park, or are we actually managing a government? And for the city of Rye to estimate a certain amount of money to pay and find out, well, wait a second, $50,000 in interest, $30,000 in unemployment, these extra costs that come in at the end of the year, that was not on anybody's radar screen. We weren't managing these month to month. And so how do we deal with that? We have to change how we operate. So I think 2010 was a good policy change, but operationally, we've got to get away from part-timers managing this and tie this into a real government structure where the City of Rye manager, the City of Rye controller are updated regularly on these numbers. They can ask some of the questions so we don't get these types of surprises, because this number has to reflect back in our budget number. There's no way we can manage to this just finding out today that when we were estimating break even, then 30,000, then 65,000, now 142,000. We've got to change. It's not a committee of us. It's actually the governments now, Rye Town and Rye City, integrating to manage this more effectively on a month-to-month basis. Get out of the unemployment insurance. Let's get out of being self-insured. Let's have a monthly report that has all costs, like Mayor Feinstein's been asking for. I also thought that given the drop in volume, the charge of this commission was we would cut employee expenses as the season went on. We actually are way over budget on expenses of employees. So that's a surprise to me when volume is down, seasonal, you don't need as many people at the park. Now we're over what we budgeted. So to me, it's got to be a structural change. So people that are full-time, whose job it is to manage to a number, a city manager, a controller, your staff here at Rytown, somebody has to own this number because we're setting policy. We're not managing to a number.
In all due respect, it's a process.